I remember when I was 6, I would get these red pockets and my mum would be like, okay, we're going to put a lot of this away into a savings account in the bank. And then I'll be able to take, 10, 20% of this out to buy the toy that I want. And that's usually how I get my toy money. Welcome back, Leverage Addicts. And if you guys are on YouTube, you might see that we've got some new equipment. I've been actually holding back on spending more in this area, but I'm quite excited because we've got like this new equipment over there that can do a lot, where we can run like live webinars and whatnot. So you're going to see more to come. Today, I want to go over something that I found quite interesting because, I've talked to a lot of people in the time that I've been financial advisor. I get to walk through their financial positions and understand their goals. And I couldn't help but notice, right, one thing that I found in common amongst Chinese clients. They tend to keep more cash on hand and they seem to be exceptional savers. So I was intrigued by this observation and I went to do some research to find out whether or not this is true. And I found a statistic on OECD. They looked at the average household savings per country. Interestingly enough, China came out on top in the 2022 studies, sitting just over 19% of their household income, which is close to 20%, and they put away into savings. And if you look at the top 10, most of them will sit below 10%. This statistic shows that the Chinese are just very good at saving money. So what I'm going to share with you in this podcast is my findings with why the Chinese people are good at saving, and second, 4 lessons that you can take away and apply in your situation so that you can become better savers and as a result be better wealth builders. Now, if you found this episode valuable, all I ask for is one thing, and that is to smash the like button if you're on YouTube and share the episode on Spotify if you can see that it will benefit somebody else. Now, when I think back to my upbringing, I could relate to this saving mentality for the Chinese people because growing up, I'm always taught we only buy what we need, and if there are some toys I want to buy, I almost feel bad because that is what's drilled into me. My parents were very frugal. They came to New Zealand with little, just under 15,000 when I hear back the story. And they had to borrow a little bit more from family to put down a 5% deposit for a property in Beach Haven. And if you fast forward a decade later, they pretty much have $1 million house close to being paid off. Now, of course, some of that is just capital gains, but a lot of it was living frugally, working hard, and they weren't high earners, but they were able to, almost pay off their mortgage, make sure the family are looked after, have education and whatnot. But at the same time, I found just saving wasn't enough. And I want to share that with you later on in the podcast, what you should do instead. So back to the question, why are the Chinese better savers in general? And based on my research, the values that were taught through the generations. Family is a huge tradition, right? To support each other and helping the family up financially. It's an important priority for a lot of Chinese families. You might see kids live in their parents' house until they get married, and they might get a little bit of a boost for that first deposit. The Chinese mindset is to save enough so that they can give money to the next generation. That really forces them to save more money. I remember specifically talking to a client who has over 8 property in the same street. They were doing really well because they bought it a while ago and the equity is there. That's a very big piece of land in North Shore. And I asked them, what was the motivation and why did you do this? And they said something quite inspiring because they said, we want to build wealth for the next 100 years and the generations to come. And that is a summary for a lot of the Chinese mindset. Maybe not 100 years, but at least for the next generation to have a head start. And if you come to China or Hong Kong, which is where I'm from, in New Year's, we give away these things called red pockets. Some of you guys might know, and they usually have money in them. If you hear the comedian Ronnie Cheng, he talks about how the Chinese love money so much. In New Year's, they don't try to wish people happiness or healthiness. They wish each other wealthiness. And these red pockets, the tradition is that the older generation will put money in them and give it to younger generation. They'll say, "恭喜發財," which means wishing you wealthiness. I remember when I was 6, I would get these red pockets and my mum would be like, okay, we're going to put a lot of this away into a savings account in the bank. And then I'll be able to take, 10, 20% of this out to buy the toy that I want. And that's usually how I get my toy money. So the Chinese teach their kids from a very early age to save money. The second factor that I found was the economic conditions. Stability in the economy, government changes, currency devaluation. The Chinese economy often is seen as a little bit less stable than your average Western countries. As a result, you want to make sure you and your family are looked after. So the mentality to, you know what, put some money under the bed was quite common. And I think that is a huge factor to saving money for the Chinese. The third one is the government benefits, right? If you don't have a job, if you don't have medical insurance, in New Zealand, the government's going to pay for it. But in China, that's not the case. You don't have the medical benefits or the social benefits if you are unemployed. Again, that gives massive incentives for the Chinese people to save. So a lot of it is to do with the environmental circumstances. What was your upbringing like when it came to money? What were some key lessons that were taught to you? I would love to hear in the comments if you're on YouTube, or flick me an email. So after all that, you're like, Blandon, well, there wasn't any application to what you've just said. How is it relevant to me? So these are the 4 tips you can implement today based on some of the lessons I've learned. The first one is living below your means. Okay, it sounds simple. You earn 100K, you spend 50K, you're going to put some away. Now remember, if you just look at the OECD statistics, the Chinese will put away 20% of their income. That means they're living on 80%. It sounds easy, it's hard to execute, but if you can spend less than you earn, I think that's a simple way to become wealthy and good savers. Second one is bookkeeping. Now, what does this mean? If you look at anyone who's financially ahead, they usually have some spreadsheet or like a piece of paper or an app they track all their incoming expenses on. They usually have some sort of methodology to make sure that they're on top of their money. This is true for our clients as well. If we ask anyone who's financially, I would say, ahead on their age, they will have some sort of spreadsheet they can share with us, and it makes our mortgage applications a lot easier to do. So first, you need leftover, which is living below your means, and then second, you want to have some sort of tracking mechanism. And the third one is the long-term financial planning. Well, what does this mean? Well, simply put, is to set goals and then look at creating a plan that's going to allow you to achieve it. One of the strategies we like to adopt at Mortgage HQ comes from the bestseller on personal finance book, Barefoot Investor. Simply put, is to take your paycheck that comes in and then split it into 3 different buckets. The ideal position is to only live on 50%, put 30% on your wants, and then 20% for your long-term investments. This kind of aligns with the OECD statistics, putting some money away for the long term. This surely is a way for you to have a lot more for retirement. And if you do it well and do it early, you might even be able to retire much earlier than 65. The fourth one is actually learned from my own parents. Although they were good savers, they were frugal. When I started my working career, I realized perhaps there were a lot of opportunities that they have missed in terms of investing. The fourth principle is to invest wisely. Why is it important? Well, have you ever heard someone save towards their retirement? It's going to be pretty hard. Most people need to put some money at slightly higher risk than the bank because they need a higher return. Be it shares, KiwiSaver, or properties, you need to choose an asset class that you're comfortable with and put money consistently away so that it'll grow faster than the inflation and the bank interest rates. Now, personally, I invest in properties. You guys will know it if you guys have been to this channel for a while. The massive advantage with properties is leverage, meaning you can borrow money from the bank and put it in this asset and you get the total return on the capital gains, opposed to just on your particular deposit. So if you have $100,000, you buy a $600,000 property for your first home, or maybe if it's an investment, you buy $350K in the regions. That extra $250,000 is borrowed money, and if there are any capital gains, is on the $350K. That means you're getting 100% capital gains, but you only put up 35% deposit, which is great. So in summary, the 4 principles we can take away. First one is look at how you can live below your means. Sometimes you need to make the life adjustments. Second is have some bookkeeping mechanism, right? How do you track your income and expense? Do you know where your money is going? Now, if you want a planner that is already ready to go, check out the link in the description, which will give you the long explanation to the income allocation theory. And there's also a planner that you can download. The third is to have some strategy for long-term planning. Set a goal, have a plan, have a strategy. And the fourth is learn to invest, because saving money is not going to be enough. how are you going to put this money away for a higher return? If you want to find out where you are and what you need to focus on right now, then I invite you to do the mortgage lifecycle quiz. It allows you to find out what stage you're in. And because if you're in different stages, there's only one key focus so that you're not overwhelmed by all of these different things that you have to do. What's the one thing you need to focus on right now? That's what the mortgage lifecycle teaches. So that will also be in the description as well. So again, if you have found that valuable, all I ask for is one thing, is to share this episode with one other person that's going to benefit from it. If you're on YouTube, remember to smash the like button. And until next time, I'll see you guys again.